All right, good morning. This is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield, again with Carissa. Going to be covering the weather for this early this week into maybe into a little bit into the weekend, and talking about a lot of the heavy rain that we'll be experiencing. Just kind of going through some of the highlights here. I won't read all the slides. Let me go back one. We'll talk about the slight risk of heavy rainfall and flooding a little bit today, and then especially more so tomorrow. Maybe seeing some good rainfall amounts, at least about maybe 1 to 3 inches of rain, and some places could be getting 3 to 5 inches of rain here. So we'll be talking more about that, and maybe some of the flooding potential there with the heavy rainfall. Next thing we'll have is the rain will taper off around Wednesday, and then we'll be talking about some heat. Summer-like heat, ironically, is going to start coming at us. Upper 90s heat index, the near 100 for Friday, so we'll touch on that. And on the marine side, kind of some increasing winds. I'll be talking about small craft advisory conditions, picking up here for Tuesday, and Carissa will be detailing that. So with that, let's just look at where the headlines are right now. Right now, there's flood watches really mainly across the western parts of the state, kind of going down the mountains. And of course, there's a flood watch down here in North Carolina. We don't have any flood risk as of right now. It's going to take a little while for the rainfall to spread north and fill in. But I do expect that we'll see some flood watches being issued here for parts of western and central Virginia here later on, as we kind of fine tune where the rainfall is coming for tonight, and then especially all day tomorrow. So it's going to be a long duration event. And again, I do expect to see some flood watches coming out over time, probably this afternoon, and maybe we have to extend those flood watches even a little bit more on through Tuesday as it continues to unfold. Do have small craft advisories pretty much on the entire bay and on all the rivers geared for Tuesday. So kind of just going through it here, what we currently have going on. Obviously, there's a lot of moisture spreading up from the south. Have this area of low pressure. It's really, really deep low pressure, kind of centered out here towards Memphis, Tennessee. And I'll go ahead and pull over the current radar image so you can kind of see what's going on here. It's a really big slug of rainfall that really extends from almost the North Carolina Virginia border now all the way down off the Florida coast. And this is a big tropical moisture plume. It's going to be continuing to push north this afternoon and especially overnight tonight. And we're going to get locked under this thing for Tuesday. And in fact, if you look at the, let me pull up the water vapor satellite image here, you can really see this is the upper levels, the upper level flow. You can really see how this thing's tapped moisture from all around South Florida up the East Coast, and it's just streaming up into the mid-Atlantic. And we're going to kind of get locked into this for some time. What's really neat is if you look at the, I mean, it goes fast there. If you look at the kind of the weather models here, I'm going to pull over the GFS. This is really the upper level flow and upper level circulation. But you see how big this weather system is. This is the upper level low. And of course, the surface low is centered near Memphis. And this thing's just sitting out here spinning, and it's just picking up all that moisture off the Gulf and the Atlantic. And it's just pushing it right up the eastern seaboard. And in fact, if you move this ahead in time, that was this afternoon. It doesn't really move a whole lot. This low pressure just sits here and pivots across the deep south. And by the time we're getting into tomorrow morning, see, we've still got this big moisture feed coming in off the Atlantic across eastern Carolina and feeding right up into all of Virginia. So heavy rainfall and moderate heavy rainfall spreads north later this afternoon and tonight. And then by tomorrow morning, we're still kind of stuck under this thing. This low is slowly lifting towards the northeast. So it just takes a long time to get out of here. You do start to see maybe things start to break up later tomorrow, but it tries to fill back in a little bit here as we get into Tuesday night. So we'll see what happens. But this upper level low basically goes from, down here over northern Mississippi to about maybe over here over Ohio. So it's just slowly making its way north. And so even as we get into Wednesday, this is Wednesday, you still see this low is out here. We still have deep southerly flow. Probably not as much rainfall activity, but we're going to be unsettled and still see scattered showers and storms, even on Wednesday. And even if you get into Thursday, you kind of still see you have this south flow. So maybe a few little scattered showers and storms there, even Wednesday, with maybe a little bit less on Thursday. So very, very, very unsettled weather pattern with a lot of moisture coming at us from the south. If I get a little bit closer in on the radar for the conditions, kind of see what's going on here. You can kind of see the edge of that rainfall. It is just to our south, and it's going to take a little while for it to spread north, but it is a pretty solid line of rain. So as that spreads north throughout the day, and it moves across the area, we're going to basically rain's going to pick up pretty quickly. And then once it gets going, it's going to be steady once it gets here later this afternoon and this evening, and it's going to persist all the way through tomorrow. So again, you see every low pressure still tri-west tomorrow. We're wet. Wednesday, low pressure system, kind of the surface low is going to be maybe over Western Virginia, maybe even over West Virginia. So we're still very unsettled on Wednesday. Hopefully by Thursday, that surface low can maybe start to move out towards maybe the Delmarva. And once this surface low gets a little bit to the north of us, things should start to improve quite a bit. And so Thursday should be quite a bit better. I mean, Wednesday should be better than Tuesday. Thursday should be better than Wednesday. For Friday, we dry out, and we're going to be very, very humid. And we're going to start to see the sun really breaking out Thursday and especially on Friday. So we'll talk about some heat that's going to be coming at us for Friday, mainly because it's going to be so humid. It's going to drive those heat indices up Friday afternoon. So we'll talk about that here. So just breaking it down between today and tomorrow, where you have the slight risk. Basically today, the best risk for the heavy rain and flooding, I'd say it's really going to be Emporia and I-95 West. And it's even a little bit better, I'd say, as you get out towards Carr Lake, maybe up through parts of Farmville. That's where it's going to be moving in from the south, and then points west from there, getting back over the mountains. And it'll eventually work its way into Richmond later this evening. Might be able to get there maybe around the evening commute, and then start to rain, through the entire overnight and continue to spread north up here towards Louisa. But this is the area where we're looking at maybe some potentially moderate to occasionally heavy rain, late this afternoon and more like this evening and overnight. Get into Tuesday, you see that threat really becomes much more widespread across the entire region. So we'll break this down. And we've even kind of given a 6-hourly breakdown as far as, how much rainfall we're expecting to occur, within different 6-hour windows. This went out in our briefing. So you can see Farmville here, places in the west, they kind of have the better chance this afternoon. But you get into overnight and this evening, yeah, you start to see 1/2 inch to 1 inch, every 6 hours, here. So definitely see more heavy rain spreading in here later tonight, early Tuesday morning, and that kind of persists into Tuesday afternoon. But things do break up by Tuesday night. It looks like things do start to decrease, especially after 8 to 9 p.m. Tuesday, and then Wednesday does look to be unsettled, still scattered showers and storms around here with some precipitation accumulation, but not nearly as much as what we're going to have tonight and on Tuesday. So if you break the threat down kind of day by day, this is just zoomed in here for really late today and tonight. Again, really mainly, I'd say I-95 West is what we're looking at. So for just today and tonight, we're expecting about 1 to 2 inches of rain, especially in the areas there in yellow. I think worst case tonight is going to be about maybe 3 to 3.5 inches of rain, especially here from maybe Emporia up through parts of Dinwiddie, Amelia. Might be able to get that higher totals, maybe even up into parts of Goochland. I don't know if Fluvanna will quite get that much, but definitely down towards Farmville and getting down here towards Carr Lake, Clarksville, those areas. Definitely could see maybe 3.5 inches of rain in here by tomorrow morning. So we'll see what happens if you get locked under some of that more moderate to heavy rainfall for a few hours. This is the area where it could be, at least 1 to 2, maybe even you're starting to push that 3.5. And that's really overnight tonight. Get into tomorrow, and really most of the area has that risk for the moderate to occasionally heavy rainfall and maybe some minor flooding. Definitely less of a risk over the Maryland Eastern Shore and a lot of our Eastern Shore counties. So this is mainly over the mainland side of our area, a kind of exception of the Eastern Shore there. So how much rainfall might we get tomorrow? I mean, anywhere from 1.5 to about 3 inches is kind of what we're expecting, widespread across the area. And I think some areas are going to get to that 3.5 to maybe 4 inches of rain tomorrow. And really, you start to get into those kind of probabilities. I'll show you the worst case here in a second, but really just about anybody in the yellow area could start to see 3 to 4 inches of rain tomorrow. It's probably a little bit better risk, I would say, just west of I-95 and east tomorrow. That's probably where you have maybe some of the better high totals, but we'll see how it plays out. It depends upon how fast some of that, if there's some drier air can work in the afternoon for in the west. So we'll see if that happens. That's kind of a big question mark right now. Main thing we're going to be watching for, especially for early tomorrow morning and through the day tomorrow, with the rates that we're going to have, some steady rainfall rates, maybe about 1 inch an hour, maybe get up to 1.5 inches an hour. Maybe even see a 2 inch an hour rate briefly at times. We're going to have to watch out for urban flooding, especially in our highly developed urban areas. May get to the point where some of the runoff starts to become problematic and we can't get rid of the rainfall fast enough. Probably going to see a few little issues here and there in our low-lying areas, real poor drainage areas, areas where the fields drain across the roads and the ditch systems really aren't that well designed to carry off the water. So I think we'll see some flooding on some of our back roads as these fields try to drain through the afternoon with some flooding there. And in our urban areas, we're not really expecting any big issues along our main stem rivers. We'll keep an eye on places like Lawrenceville, Farmville. Right now, the models are showing that we might try to make a run at flood stage there, but we're not forecasting river flooding right now. So we'll keep an eye on some of the main stem rivers, but we've been dry, so we can actually take quite a bit of moisture, at least in our rivers and stuff. So we should be in pretty good shape. So mainly an urban flood event and just our typical low-lying, poor drainage areas, typical areas that typically flood. That's probably what we may see here, especially for tomorrow. So this is our widespread on the left image here, kind of how much rainfall we're expecting over the next, basically today and tomorrow. And this even gets us into a little bit on Wednesday, but most of the rain is tonight and tomorrow. So you can see a widespread 2 to 3 inches of rain pretty much everywhere. By the time you get out towards the eastern parts of the peninsula, the middle peninsula, northern neck, even parts of Hampton Roads, 1.5 inches. Hampton Roads is probably going to make a run at 2 inches of rain down here on the south side and even down here in North Carolina. And you look at the worst case scenarios here on the left, it's 3 to 5 inches, 4 to 6 inches, but I'd say, anywhere from 3.5 to let's say 5 inches of rain is kind of what we're expecting. And it really areas from like Emporia up through Wakefield here, maybe even getting up towards Tappahannock, kind of from there west is kind of the areas that we might see some of those higher totals. And again, this is over the entire event. So that's why you're seeing, the places in the east are not getting the heavy rain today, where the places in the west actually are going to get it tonight. And then we'll see the rain kind of shifting, north and east as we get through tomorrow. So areas that get the rain tonight and then again all day tomorrow. And again, that's, I'd say, just east of Emporia up through Wakefield, Tappahannock west. This is the area where we might see some of those higher totals. And that does include Richmond. Richmond might be able to get upwards of, maybe let's say 4 to 5 inches of rain potentially. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, this is over a fairly long period of time. So, any flooding that we have should be fairly minor, but still could cause some travel issues during the morning commute and evening commute for tomorrow. So it's kind of breaking it down a little bit more. You can kind of see Monday through Wednesday is our big slug of rain. Really everybody in the mid-Atlantic is getting in on this. Pretty much widespread 2 to 3 inches of rain like we talked about. But then you look at Thursday through Sunday, and again, most of this is just widely scattered showers, maybe even a rumble of thunder or two, but not nearly as much rain. This again, as you get later in the week, and that's because things are going to be a lot more scattered. So our big slug of rain really is coming from Monday and Tuesday, and it's impacting a pretty broad area. A lot of the headwaters, basically the upstream areas that feed the James River and Appomattox River, I'll get a lot of good rain in the mountains here. So this is good. It's going to allow us to recharge some of our rivers, may push the rivers up to action stage, maybe close to flood stage. You're even getting out here on the Roanoke River. So we're getting some good recharge as you're getting some, rainfall, not only here, but even back towards the mountains, getting some good heavy rainfall up there as well. And again, this is just our 7-day total. And I included this just so you can kind of see that timing that we've already talked about, mainly in the west later today, this evening, and then really spreading in later tonight everywhere and lasting through pretty much the whole day Tuesday as far as our rainfall timing. Temperature-wise, with all of the cloud cover and precipitation, things are fairly mild for today and tomorrow. Even into Wednesday, we'll still have quite a bit of cloud cover, so we're pretty mild there. But then you notice Friday, those temperatures really jump up, pretty much upper 80s to low 90s for air temperatures. That's not heat index, but that's our temperatures. And even Saturday is still pretty warm with temperatures there in the, I'd say, mid to upper 80s, maybe even low 90s in a few locations. So going to see some good sunshine breaking out, I'd say late Thursday, but especially Friday, Saturday. Some good sunshine, some warm temperatures, and a lot of humidity. So we'll talk about the heat here in a minute. And again, you see those on the precipitation table here. Obviously, we've been hitting Tuesday really hard, but Wednesday still got some decent chances of scattered showers and storms in the afternoon. This will be more kind of like pop up here and there, but you might still expect to see a passing shower or a thunderstorm here, even late Wednesday, because it's just going to be so humid and still unsettled, just not a lot of widespread rainfall. And then Thursday afternoon, again, we're still getting a few little scattered showers and thunderstorms around, kind of a little bit more hit and miss, but we're still going to have a few around because it's going to be hot and humid, and those rain chances really start to decrease by Friday. And Saturday looks like, I think it'll be mostly dry as well going into the weekend. So kind of talking about that heat, it's not dangerous heat. It's just the first time we've probably seen heat indices getting up around 100. And that's going to be really there on Friday. So you can kind of see the heat index here. Getting, I'd say, in the mid to upper 90s. I wouldn't be shocked to see a few places get to around 100-degree heat index there Friday afternoon. So first little bit of heat here for the season, and still pretty warm even on Saturday. Not as bad, but we may still see some low to mid 90 heat indices even on Saturday. But Friday does look like it's going to be the hottest day. And again, the humidity is just so high. That's what's driving a lot of this. Is it's just going to be so warm and really so humid. That's what's driving our heat index. Nothing dangerous. Just the first time we're going to have some heat of the season. Looking ahead into next week, the 8 to 14 day outlook, temperatures are probably going to be right around normal, give or take. You kind of see here, not a lot of confidence here. So most of Central Virginia is kind of that near normal, maybe better chance it's going to be warmer deep in the south. So we're kind of in that equal chances. It is still a bit of a trough here across the basically the middle part of the country in the northeast. So maybe a little bit better chances of being cooler to the north, but still warm to the south. We're kind of caught in the middle. So we'll see how next week plays out. And just a very weak signal that next week could be still, off and on showers and storms, maybe a little unsettled, but not a very strong signal, just showing a very low probability that we could continue to be unsettled into early next week, but nothing really strong as far as a strong climatic signal one way or another. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and shift gears, and we'll get into the marine forecast, and Carissa will take over from here.
Good morning, everyone. Let's jump into the marine side of things. So today we only have a small chance of reaching small craft criteria, basically in the mouth of the bay today. We are seeing a higher chance of seeing small craft all throughout all of our waters, coastal and throughout the bay tomorrow, and maybe a few gusts that could be small craft lingering into Wednesday as well. Breaking it down by the winds first, we currently do have small craft advisories up that will go into effect for the bay and the southern coastal waters, as we saw with our headlines page at the beginning of this presentation. And so that will start Tuesday morning and lasting through Wednesday afternoon. If you look at our timing breaking down chart, it shows that the winds should start to decline late Tuesday, really early Wednesday. But we'll talk about how the seas will remain elevated, hence the small crafts through Wednesday afternoon. But we are seeing pretty marginal small crafts throughout the majority of the area, 25 knots around for both the coastal waters and the bay. For our wind summary, we do see a sustained Tuesday afternoon around 20 knots, and then those gusts up to 25, maybe 26, but still pretty marginal small craft overall. We do see those winds start to decrease and be pretty benign for the most of the day, Wednesday and Thursday. And Friday, we could see another chance of needing some small craft for some areas on Saturday. For our waves, the waves will start to really ramp up towards the afternoon on Tuesday. And then once they reach, we're forecasting 5 to 7 feet in the coastal waters and 4 to 5 feet in the bay. And we could see some potentially higher, maybe 6-foot waves in the mouth of the Chesapeake. And then these waves will stay elevated for the most of the day Wednesday, maybe into really early Thursday, and then they will start to decline and go back to benign marine conditions for the weekend. So that is all we had for our presentation. Thank you for listening in. I will go ahead and stop the recording.